All right, good morning, everybody. I will try to not butcher this. Goedemorgen, yes. My name is Matthew Wade. You can call me Matt. I'm coming here from the United States, if that's not blatantly obvious enough. Today we're going to be talking about some intros to the Azure bot services, a little bit of technical stuff for you to dive into or to bite your teeth into, but it's going to be a lot more of the architecture, some demos, a couple use case examples. Frankly, some of the hardest parts of dealing with this era right now is trying to get the use cases obvious and available to people. So if you are looking into this, that's great. If you have customers or partners or management of yours that is not so sold on this, welcome to my life. But hopefully you can walk away with some use cases from this session so that you can really try to sell this, because there is a lot of value in putting together some of this automation through chatbots, natural language processing, machine learning, insert buzz phrase of the 2010s here, however you'd like to refer to it. So let's get started. A little background on me. My name is Matt Wade. As I said, I'm a Microsoft MVP, so that means I do not work for Microsoft. I work for a company called H3 Solutions near Washington, D.C. We are the creators of AtBot. It's the no-code chatbot solution for the Microsoft Cloud. I'm not product placing today. This is going to be strictly a demo and technical discussion. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I will also connect to anybody on LinkedIn. I will be posting all of this information online afterwards on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you want the slides, links to the demos, they're all on YouTube. You can watch them. You can check that out later. And actually, just a little interesting some stuff for me. This is my first time in the Netherlands. I come from an area north of New York City. So I live in Albany. Now, Albany, if you don't know any of the history of the New Netherland area, we have a lot of the same names. So I got here, it was very weird to see these blue signs saying Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Utrecht. Yeah, we don't have a Utrecht, but we do have Delft, we do have The Hague, all of that kind of stuff. I actually grew up in Rensselaer County. Rensselaer County is an offshoot, basically, of the Manor of Rensselaerwyck, which is the anglicized version of Rensselaerswijk. So there's a lot of Dutch history where I come from. I actually went to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I can't get away from you people. Okay, that's what it is growing up in the Dutch, I guess leftovers, I'll say, within the US. But Albany, actually, the history of that was that we were Beverwijk back in the day. So the fur trade was a really big deal. Amsterdam and I would say Rotterdam are not nearly as nice in New York. Just as not. They're sort of old mill towns that have kind of dealt with the up and comings of technology and economic change in upstate New York. But otherwise, the Albany area is very well known for education, government. New York City is not the capital of New York, for anybody who didn't know that. And we also have a lot of healthcare industry up there too. So kind of cool to see what has come from it. If you ever want to read about it, check out the some Wikipedia articles on this topic. It was Kilian van Rensselaer. I don't know if there are any van Rensselaers left, but that name sticks around very well where we're from. And yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. We also have our own Tulip Fest. Back in the 50s, I think it was, the mayor of Albany reached out to your Queen Wilhelmina, and she, I guess, anointed, or whatever the word would be, for officialized a brand of tulip or a strain of tulip. I think it's the Orange Beauty, something like that. But this is actually our Tulip Fest. We have a tulip parade every May. And you can see on the top left, that is the flag of Albany. It may look a little bit familiar. It's your Prince William's flag from the 1600s-ish. So we kind of stole the orange stripe from that. You guys went back to red, and we threw our city seal on it. So some connections there. All right, so I'm not here to talk about Dutch influence on the Americas. I am here to talk about Microsoft stuff. So if you have any recognition of my name, it might be because of a bunch of infographics I put out. I like to take very complex topics, which is basically the entire Microsoft stack, and I like to boil them down to something a little bit simpler. So this is one that gets around a lot. If you have any interest in understanding how Office 365 groups work, this should help out a little bit. But I'm probably best known for this. How many people have seen the periodic table of Office 365 before? Okay, cool, great. So many of you have not, so check it out. This is actually live and available for you on the website at the bottom right there. And if you'd like, I have some buttons and stickers and stuff you can grab after the session, so come on up. It's available in Dutch, and it is also dynamic table, I guess, infographic. You can click on any of these tiles. It'll pop up a nice article about what the product is. It is very user-friendly. My aim here is for users, although I don't get that many. I get a lot more of people like you, like me, but it's a good way to give people an overview of what actually comes with Office 365. Please don't kill me. This is just one man's opinion on what Office 365 is, but that's sort of what I'm known for if you've ever seen my name before. But we're not talking about Office 365 either. We're going to be talking about bots today. So the biggest hurdle for me typically is getting people over the hump of why would I even want to look into this technology? Who would ever want to chat with something when they could just talk to a person? Well, people are, limited in their knowledge, right? They're also only able to do certain things, whatever they're trained to do, and they forget things. They also leave companies. Their processes may not be well documented, things like that. So if you can put together chatbots, one, multiple, however many you need, and move forward with automating your everyday work, that can be a major boon for you. So the first thing I like to point out, sort of in this, there's a triad of information that you can garner from this. The first thing is that a bot can really be good at grabbing information you already have. How many of you might have some on-prem systems that you can't upgrade or move to the cloud yet, and that's holding back a project that you have elsewhere because it's a prerequisite to that? Can anybody attest to that? Not just one, come on. Yeah, okay. Well, if you have a bot, that bot can still go ping that piece of information, regardless of where it is. Doesn't matter where it is. You can get on-premises gateways connected to it. You can be connecting that to cloud services. Anybody here that might be using 2 different CRMs, maybe use Dynamics and not Dynamics, and you want to keep them in sync, that's something you can do using a chatbot. So with the bot, if you go through and ask it to go do something that has to do with your CRM or your IT services, maybe you're using Zendesk and you're using ServiceNow, okay? And you want to keep things in sync because you just had a merger with another company, you're not sure how to do all that stuff. This is a way that you can have the bot go and do 2 things and then come back and keep one place updated, right? So getting access to a lot of the stuff you already have, and it's not just IT and CRM, it could be anything. Any piece of data that you have out there, you can grab access to using a chatbot, and the chatbot can make changes, updates, deletes, things like that. It's also good for knowledge management. So I'm a knowledge management guy, actually sort of by profession before I got into the Office 365 world. If I had chatbots when I was a KM guy, I would have loved it. Being able to provide a natural language interface where you can respond to a question that has a knowledgeable answer, provide somebody a way to get going, that's really powerful. Think about when you're new at an organization. Think about all the emails that a random person dumps on you and says, you probably should read all these. And then somebody else says, you should probably read all these now. But you don't actually care about that. You just want to know where to get a cup of coffee. The stupid questions like that, which aren't really stupid questions, right? They're the things that everybody has to get through to start a new position. Those are the kinds of things that can be really powerful to add so that people don't have to be embarrassed to go ask questions like that. But it's not all touchy-feely like that. There's more to it. So that's sort of the knowledge management aspect. If I have time, I'll get into that. But if not, I have some good articles on how KM is sort of being upended right now by the chatbot technology. But the third and probably most important thing to do is to make sure your bot does something. Don't just have it know things. Don't just have it chit-chat back and forth with you. Have it actually kick off processes. I talk to a lot of people who, when I talk about building a bot and how much time and effort that can take, these are custom applications. You have to design them, you have to build them, you have to test them, and then you have to maintain them, right? Well, I get a lot of it took me 5 minutes to build. I don't understand what the problem is here. And what happened was, it turns out they just made an FAQ bot, a frequently asked questions bot. And that's fine, great, get into the mold, but that's also very limiting. If you're not having it going off and doing something, it's not really taking a lot of effort away from the people that are in the organization, and you're not really automating that much. So you want to make sure you can go off and actually do something. So I like to always point out here don't fall into that trap, okay? A good fact bot is not going to be good enough for you. Okay, so then we kind of jump into architecture. So a good bot really has to stand on these 3 legs. This is sort of the 3-legged stool, I think, of a good chatbot architecture. And again, this is just one man's opinion. There are plenty of others out there. Lots have been written in the Azure sphere about building bots, so you can see what others think on this. I think it's important to look at this from an understanding, a doing, and a knowing viewpoint. For understanding, you're going to be using the natural language processing built into whatever tool that you want to use for that. I will talk about what Azure has to offer. For the knowledge, you're going to be talking about a resource, a place where you're going to dump known information into it so that you can connect that natural language processing, the understanding, to the knowledge, and then get back to the user with whatever the answer is, or whatever the bot or the service thinks the answer is. Then there's kicking off an action. So that's logic. That's having the right credentials to go off and do system administration, things like that. But it's also the ability to go out and just put in an approval request for something. Maybe somebody needs to purchase something that costs more than $10,000 and it has to go to the CFO, right? That type of request can be a logic-based task. Now, in Azure, the bot itself, you're going to be using Azure Bot Services to build it, and you're going to be building it with the bot framework. Not to play like I'm doing something I can't do, I'm not a developer. I am very much not a code guy. I can probably give you a heading or some bold text in HTML. That'll get me as far as I can go. But I can play with this stuff in Azure. It's actually very surprisingly easy, except for the logic part of it. That's the part where I wouldn't get into it, but I will show you some of the stuff that I use. For natural language processing, you're going to be using LUIS, and actually you're going to be using QnA Maker as well. LUIS is effectively the natural language processor within the Azure Cognitive Services. QnA Maker is a big table of information that has your answers to common questions, and I'll show you what they look like. QnA Maker does have its own natural language processing built into it. I kind of call this a search engine on steroids, because it's effectively asking, like Googling, Binging something with a question mark at the end and getting an actual answer back. So it's pretty cool, and it's very easy for the local lines of business to own, which I think is a really big takeaway for you today, is to know that LUIS and QnA Maker are very easy to use and easy to maintain. So that means when you build these bots, how many of you are in IT or in a security role? Okay, good portion. How many are you in lines of business? HR, marketing, anything like that? Very few, okay. So the people that are in the lines of business will be able to upkeep these. They don't have to wait for IT, and IT doesn't have to cater to them, right? That relationship can sometimes get a little tenuous, and this kind of keeps things in a very nice kumbaya state. So these are in Azure. And then for the logic aspect of it, you're going to be coding here with Node or C#. And then with the product that I work on, we actually use Microsoft Flow and Logic Apps. How many of you are familiar with Flow or Logic Apps, or both? Cool. So Flow and Logic Apps are basically the WYSIWYG drag and drop editors for building out automated actions in Office 365 and Azure. Very, very powerful. Able to connect to a lot of different services basically built in, but you can also connect to a service that might be in a third-party cloud app as long as they have an API. Any questions so far? Okay, great. When it comes to getting a hold of your bot, there's two different paradigms here. The first is going to be an internal bot. That bot's going to know who you are. So it knows that you're logged into Office 365 or into whatever system you're going to be using that's connected to Azure. Bots basically live natively in Teams. How many of you have rolled out, or let's say how many of you actually rolled out and are using Microsoft Teams? Cool, I love Teams. If you have take a minute today and check out the AvePoint booth. If you have any interest, one thing I'm trying to nip in the bud is etiquette in Microsoft Teams. Like, don't click the like button just because you like it. Click the like button because you can acknowledge some things. Don't create too many channels. Let's see. Make sure that if you start bad-mouthing about John in your private conversation with somebody else and somebody adds John to it, John can see what's said beforehand. Things like that. Teams is a really powerful tool, and if you haven't used it yet, you should take a look at it. But if you have been using it, these are some of the rules, very nice little compact to have at the beginning, that we're going to follow these rules, or we'll amend them as necessary, but they're available. So it's a cool little printout that I worked with AvePoint to get built out. So Teams is where you're going to see these bots natively, but you can use Direct Line, which will get you access to drop your bot into any web app. So I bring up SharePoint because how many of you live in SharePoint on a day-to-day basis? Okay, great. So don't look at the chatbot adoption as being a way to get people to Teams. You will fail on both counts. If people don't want to go to Teams and they don't want to go to the chatbot, they're not going to go to Teams to go to the chatbot. Okay? So if they're already using SharePoint, just drop your bot into SharePoint. I have some documentation on how to drop a chatbot into SharePoint Online using an SPFX web part. So you can check that out, very much how-to. But you can also do it in any other intranet. If you have a custom application for mobile, something like that internally, you can do that. So that's the authenticated experience. Then you have the external public experience. So Azure has a number of channels that you can connect to. Websites are probably the number one, right? So if you have a public website and you want to deal with customer service, tech support, all that tier 1 stuff, you can effectively automate that out of existence. And you can use your website to do that. You can also connect to a number of different services through social media. I think Facebook Messenger and Twitter are covered. You can also use SMS. So let's say you're a courier company, something like UPS or FedEx or DHL. You want to send out a notification. You know how they always end with, please do not reply, right? They can't get a response. What if I could reply? What if I could say, you know, what time is this actually going to show up? Or can I delay this to tomorrow? And then you get a knowledgeable answer that's like, yes. And would you like to go do something about it? Yes. So I respond with that, and we schedule something for tomorrow. So instead of getting those email notifications or text messages that always say, from no reply at company.com, it can be, no, please reply at company.com. And it can actually respond natively. All right. So I do like to point out, though, because Teams is available on all the major operating systems out there, it's basically you have those chatbots in your pocket from day one once you roll it out, which is really, really powerful. You don't have to worry about there being some sort of new platform that people have to adopt. It's already there. It's already native. As you can see, I'm a Mac user. I'm an iPhone user. I had a Surface for a while. You can see what happened there. And all of this stuff works 100% in all of the different operating systems. So Windows will have a good experience. Android will. I don't know about Windows Phone. OK, so I'm going to do a quick demo here. I will say this one is a video. There's another one that's another demo that's a video as well. I'm not doing this because it's smoke and mirrors or that I'd want to make it seem like it works. It does work, I swear. It's much easier to not tempt the demo gods. Also, I'm having a conversation with a bot, and I'm trying to have a conversation with you. It's not very easy. So when you get into demoing these type of products, good luck. My head spins when I try to do live demos to people and talk to them at the same time. So it's much easier for me to just do a video of it and talk about it and be able to pause it, whatnot. So I swear I'm not trying to blow smoke up your rear ends on this one. This is real, but I will do a live one in a little bit using my phone. So this one is an HR example. So we're going to do this in Microsoft Teams. So we'll say that the user in this case goes to Office and says, I have some questions. I'm a new employee. I want to know about some information regarding taking time off because I don't live to work. I work to live. So I'm going to go to the Ask HR bot, and I'm going to say hello. You need to have some small talk back and forth. Otherwise, people do not trust your bot, period. Do not make that mistake, OK? So Azure just recently, with QnA Maker, rolled out a tool called Chit Chat. They call it a tool. It's really just a spreadsheet of text back and forth. You just upload it, and QnA Maker then has it. Right now, it's only available in English, and I will provide you some resources for multilingual support. Dutch is fully supported across all of these tools, by the way. There are a couple new ones coming out that are not Dutch-friendly. They are German-friendly, though, so you got that going for you. So the first question here, or the first knock, it's sort of a virtual hello, what's going on, is saying hi there. So you want to have a nice response to that. Tell the person what you can do. So go ahead and ask HR-related questions. So I'm going to ask a knowledgeable question here, is how much vacation time do I get? Now, I'm American here, so we actually have to find out about that because we don't get a whole lot of that. So the answer came up, if you saw that, and it actually provided a link to the corporate manual. Hey, here's the answer. And this is actually kind of a long answer. I would generally say don't get this long for knowledge-based questions. You want it to be a very TLDR, too long didn't read type of response. Otherwise, people get bored or don't want to read just because we don't have attention spans any longer. So here's an answer here, tells you how much time you get off based on when you're in. This could have been an action. This could have gone to your HRIS system, found out how long the person was there and said, hi, Matt, you have 3 weeks of vacation per year. And I know that because you started working 6 months ago. But in this case, it's specifically just a knowledge-based question with a link to the resource. And you can actually throw buttons in here to kick off actions if you want to. So this is coming from QnA Maker, and I'll show you exactly how that looks in the background. So now the person And think of it this way. If there's something I've learned from chatbot conversation building, it's communication and relationship communication, perhaps. Boy, did my girlfriend and I really love the leading question. The question that I asked her was, how much time off do I get? But that's not really what I really wanted to know. I just wanted to request time off, right? So I needed to skip ahead to that second question. And we now kind of came to an agreement at one point, like, we are not going to do leading questions. They're a waste of time. They cause frustration. They cause confusion. It does the same thing with chatbots sometimes. So it's nice to be able to go into a bot and provide both options, but eventually people will realize they don't have to do the niceties of, I would like to open a support ticket. That's great. What should go in your support ticket? My phone is broken. Why didn't you just tell me that? Okay, so that's the kind of thing that people will learn over time, that they don't have to do that nicety that a human appreciates. You don't have to be nice to a bot. A bot's not real. You can just tell the bot, go fix this and go fix it now, and the bot goes and does that, okay? So kind of a nice thing to keep in mind. So here, the person says, hey, I'm going on vacation on these dates. So the bot is able to parse that and identify a couple key pieces of information. It comes back and will say, okay, great, looks like you want to take vacation time from date 1 to date 2. Let me grab your manager and get some confirmation on that. So after a very short period of time, because my manager really trusts me, she comes back and says, yep, no problem. And at this point, you could definitely go forward and connect to something like your, and I'm not Bill, that's just our demo tenant, but you can definitely go forward here and throw in an approval process through Microsoft Flow or other. The approval process in Flow and Logic apps is really good. You could also toss in a connection to your HRIS. How many of you use SAP or ADP for your HR system? Probably a lot, okay. You can connect to those third-party apps and just grab, actually find out, is vacation time greater than what the request is? So that's a nice availability. You can even schedule that out. You could even add an appointment to their Outlook calendar. You could even schedule an automatic out-of-office reply to their Outlook calendar upon all of this confirmation. So we got our process finished from question 1, which was, I have a request, all the way through to the end, we're done. Now imagine between the first response from the bot and the second, that could have been 4 or 5 days later, could have been 2 weeks later. Right, so you have to keep that in mind when you're writing out these messages, because they do have to be context specific so that the person doesn't get too confused. Now, let's say the user here, Bill, wants to take off some more time. I think it was in December. Well, Bill wasn't very specific, so Bill had to say vacation, or time off. The term time off is vague in this situation. It might be vacation time, it might be sick time. I guess you shouldn't probably be scheduling sick time, but if you're going in for surgery, how about that? That would be scheduling sick time. So I'm clarifying here, no, I need vacation time. Otherwise, I've got everything else. The bot can go through and say, okay, great. Here are the dates that you chose, and that's what we're going to go forward with. So it's the same process, same approval, same manager. It's grabbing the manager based on the Office graph, based on, well, that's a fancy name really just for Azure Active Directory. If AD has your manager identified in there, it will automatically go to that person for an approval, or it can. This is just a demo, so you can make it be whatever you would like it to be. And then another thing you'll see is that humans do say thank you to bots. So you might want to provide a response to that. So this is a totally separate action now. This is another logical response here that based on somebody saying perfect thanks, or thank you, okay, great, got it, bye, something like that, you can automatically kick off a process that says, okay, awesome, glad I could help. Would you mind filling out a survey for me? So you can see there's a button there that says survey. This response is actually from QnA Maker. The last 2 processes were logic, so they were not coming from QnA Maker. But this one provides a button that then is a keyword to kick off another action. Okay, so we went knowledge, action, action, knowledge, action. And now we're asking how much, or how did you feel about this? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Oh, and by the way, do you have any comments? So this is the kind of thing that you can dump into a table someplace, a spreadsheet, a SharePoint list, a SQL Server database, I don't care. And then you can bring it up into Power BI and show success metrics, things like that. So all very powerful. So this is sort of a simple one, but one that I think can relate to a lot of people out there. I think everybody has to take time off at some point. If you do have a process for that, it's probably pretty easy to automate, and it keeps things on track from there. Any questions so far? Yeah. That's pretty quick. Yeah. So the question is, my manager takes his time to get back to me on my vacation request, can the bot wait? So in this case, we're using Microsoft Flow. A Flow can be running for 30 days max. If your manager takes 30 days, should probably be looking at a new job. But that's where my comment about the response being contextual, so that when you say, hey, congratulations, remember that time that you asked me about taking time off from October 10th to October 12th? That was approved. So just be smart in how you write these things. You will find that a lot of the effort building these chatbots isn't so much the logic. You're probably familiar with that. It's keeping a dialogue natural. I am more and more of an introvert as I get older. That gets harder and harder to do. So if you can relate to that, you have to really put your brain to use on this. So let's talk a little bit about the tools in the background. I talked about QnA Maker. This is what QnA Maker looks like. It is 2 columns. On the left, you have questions. On the right, you have answers. For every answer, you can have multiple phrasings of the same question. This is a major improvement over the last few months. QnA Maker before used to be 1 entry for every question. It was a nightmare, because if you wanted to change the answer, you had to change it with every phrasing that came up with that question. You no longer have to do that. So this is effectively kind of taking a SharePoint search and pointing it to the right answer, which I really wish SharePoint gave us a long time ago. They still have it. Even with best bets and promoted results, you still just have that one option for a search term. Well, this is taking over lots of search terms effectively and bringing it towards an answer. If you want to try this out live at some point, go ahead and open up Microsoft Teams, and you can go into the App Store. The product that I work on, AtBot, we have a free version that strictly provides Microsoft Teams help and guidance. If you guys on Teams remember when T-Bot was a thing, T-Bot has been retired. They buried him. He's dead. He's no longer helpful at all, other than saying, please go to the Microsoft Teams training site on docs.microsoft.com. We thought that was sort of a mistake, so we kind of took over for that. So if you want to, if you're rolling out Teams and you want to see some people have a bot as a resource to help them out, maybe give them a taste of what's out there, try AtBot. It's free. It's not, you're not going to be charged for anything, and you can just add it to your private chat or to your team. And you can actually see what QnA Maker does based on what it says. I get reports every day as to what people are asking, and then I can fine-tune the connections, which is really helpful. For a public-facing bot, beware, you will get weird stuff sometimes. We have a bot on our website to help people get cost estimates for our premium service, for some other questions. I've now gotten, I think, 4 or 5 times somebody has asked, why is the sky blue? Don't know why that's a go-to general knowledge question. We decided to provide the answer and a link to Wikipedia. There you go. So there's some person out there that really hates a woman named Julia. We're not sure why. AtBot ends up being their therapist, but it does. So be prepared for that. So like I said, questions with various answers, TLDR responses with links to other places, the source effectively, prove that you're right. Cite your sources, or you can have buttons for actions to take. So you're good for going through for there. Okay, so that was QnA Maker. LUIS is a bit of a different animal, although the user interface is reasonably similar. LUIS is what you use when you want to kick off an action. QnA Maker and LUIS actually, you will have to choose how you want to put them in an order of precedence, because they do the same thing at first. They understand content. LUIS is what's going to kick off information. That requesting time off demo, this is what the LUIS app looks like. So each LUIS app, you should technically have 1 app to 1 bot. You can tempt fate and use 2. You should also try to use 1 language per bot. You can try 2 or 3 if you want to tempt fate, by all means. I don't recommend it, though. Each of those apps has intents. I want to do something. I don't care how I say it, but I want to do it. That is called an intent. This is the intent for requesting time off. It is not the same as requesting to go to a conference, right? The intent is I want to go to a conference. The other intent is I want to take vacation or sick time, all right? For each of these intents, you have utterances. Each intent has to have at least 5 utterances. So you have all these different phrasing, basically. How can I say the same thing 100 different ways? The more ways that you provide, the better. This is the hard part. Microsoft doesn't provide any content for this kind of thing. So when you go through the actual request process for these things, you do have to come up with different ways to say things. Now, I'm from the US, I'm from the Northeast. When I test some of these things with other Americans, it's like, whoa, you say what? People from Texas, people from the South, people from Washington, people from California, the Great Plains in the middle of the country. we have very different phrasings. I had no idea. I have such a greater appreciation for language after this, and that's being the stereotypical monolingual American. We don't care about language, but I definitely care more about language now. It's a very interesting topic to think about, especially when it's within the same language or vernacular even. So you do have to do testing. Testing on this is going to be less about the logic and more about the language to make sure that it's going to catch what it needs to catch. Now, you'll see there's a few things that are blue here. So vacation is blue. A few days off is blue. The word sick is blue. Vacation is blue. From Monday to Friday is blue. These are all entities, and they're basically variables. So if LUIS identifies a term that it thinks it needs as like input for this request, it can grab those and identify this is the entity value. So when I said I want to take vacation, say tomorrow through Monday, LUIS is smart enough to know the date today, right, based on my Azure service, and say tomorrow is March 22nd, I think, and you want to take it off from tomorrow until Monday. The next Monday on the calendar is going to be the 25th. So you want to take vacation time from March 22nd to 25th. Not time off, not sick time, vacation time. So those are entities that actually pull through automatically once you say it. So you have to provide a number of different ways to say these things, otherwise it won't catch it. If there are synonyms, you're going to have to provide those. It's not going to necessarily be smart enough to know that. It does pretty well with spelling errors and typos, I will say. I'm pleasantly surprised by that, but it's not perfect. But then again, neither are you. So if you were accepting that request, you might not understand it either. So those are important to keep in mind. So these entities also can be considered like if I was filling out a form, these are just the fields of the form, right? So let's say I want to set up a meeting with somebody, and I tell the bot, set up a meeting with my boss tomorrow in an available conference room, and the topic is budget projections next year. So that's 4 pieces of data that were required to get that going. Actually 5, because I'm the creator of it. So my boss's name and who that person is, where it's happening, when it's happening, and what are we talking about. You can't send an Outlook appointment, Teams appointment, without that information, right? So it has to be in there, and you can have a process built in where, hey, you forgot X, you forgot Y. You didn't tell me when you want to do this. You want to do it yesterday? Good luck, right? That kind of thing you need to be able to sort of error handle, I guess I'll say. LUIS doesn't have that built in, so you do have to play with that yourself. So this is sort of my suggested order of operations. This is actually the order of operations we use for our product for the no-code actions. Basically, when the user pings the bot, if you're using a keyword process to kick off the skill, so basically, if you, instead of saying, I want to take vacation time from tomorrow until Monday, you just say vacation, it can kick off the same process. It would then just ask you for the input necessary. So that if you know the keywords, that's great. Tech folks love keywords. Real people do not. So just kind of keep that in mind. It will then get passed off to LUIS. LUIS will go, okay, let me chew on this a little bit, see if I understand it. If I do understand it, great, I'm going to kick off the appropriate skill. If LUIS doesn't understand it, or doesn't identify it as one of its intents, it just goes, nope, not me. Then we pass it off to QnA Maker. So QnA Maker is then going to do the same thing. They're both doing natural language processing, and they're both trying to understand the input. If QnA Maker understands it, QnA Maker then comes back, tells the bot, here's your answer, send that to the user. User takes the answer and does with it what they will. If QnA Maker doesn't know it, you're SOL. Your bot doesn't know what to do. It's going to send back what's called the default message. That's the, I'm sorry, I don't know what you said. Maybe my bot knowledge will be better tomorrow. Something like that. So nobody likes to get that, of course, which is why it's important to, when you roll out these bots, don't start out very small and get bigger. Start out pretty reasonably big in the amount of phrasings that you can use and the number of high-value actions people want to take. Don't automate everything. If something that's automated is used once a week versus, and it takes even a little bit of time to build it, that may not be as valuable as something that's used 5 times a day by everybody that takes a long time to do. Because if it's something that actually helps people get their day to be more efficient, they will actually jump onto that themselves. Okay, any questions? Cool. So I'm going to do another demo here. This is another video. So this is information technology support. I think something that most of us can probably relate to. In this case, we're going to be using SharePoint. So we have a beautiful new communication site, and we dropped a bot onto it. Our user is looking for some information, and they scroll through the site, and because they have no attention span and they're bad users, they go, never mind, I don't want to look myself, I'll just ask. Now imagine how many humans would have to answer questions like this. So I realize that it's 2019 and I shouldn't have to ask about connecting to a printer, but everybody still connects to printers once or twice a year probably, and because it's so infrequent, they don't know how to do it. So this is a very common request that IT shops get. So I'd like to connect to a printer. The bot in this case is going to come back and say, okay, what kind of printer do you want? Do you want color? Do you want black and white? Our choice is too hard, so you can just say it doesn't matter, which will default to black and white. And I can come back and say, I think I said black and white. This is one of those field stops where it's asking and saying, hold on, I have required information. It's the what kind of printer do I want? So I'm asking that to start with. So I say black and white. And then the bot's going to go off into Office Graph and say, hey, you sit in the New York office. Do you want to print there? Probably do, but maybe I'm traveling, or maybe I'm printing to somebody else in a different office someplace. So it grabbed that information, wants me to confirm, and I can say, yep, I do want to print in the New York office. Thank you oh so much, bot. And the bot will come back and say, okay, I have a list of printers that I know about, and I know that in the New York office, there are black and white printers only on the 7th and 8th floors. Which floor do you want to print on? Now, if your AD is updated enough that they know which floor level, this could be already known and could be assumed. You could say, instead of you work in New York, do you want to print in New York? You could say, you work in New York on the 7th floor, do you want to print there? And the person can just say yes, and that gets rid of a step. So user says 7, and the bot is going back, and in this case, I'm actually just grabbing a SharePoint list and doing a query using Microsoft Flow. So I'm coming back with, of course, we all name our printers awfully, right? Anybody here have a well-named printer list out there? Probably not. So being able to identify these is not very easy. So in this case, it comes back with, here's the printer name and all of its just character glory. It's a black and white printer and it's on floor 7. You could even say it's near cubicle X if you wanted to add that information. That's great. So this is a simple query in SharePoint. There was actually no code in building any of this because that's something that I can't do. And then I have the basic information on how to connect to a printer. So this is the Windows 10 guide. So I just took what is basically not a very large page, but I got to jump around and read through it, whatever. This is the step-by-step getting a printer connected in Windows 10. But if you want screenshots and this isn't good enough for you, go ahead and click the link and it brings you to this. So this is just a hyperlink that I provided. And after that, it gives the user a couple minutes and says, hey, did that work? And I can say yes. Or I could say no. And I could then provide information as to why it didn't work. So now the demo ends essentially with the bot saying, great, blah, 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 blah. Call me back tomorrow if you have any questions. And in the background, we had actually created a ticket for this. So if you're using ServiceNow, this will be familiar. Automatically, when somebody asks about connecting to a printer, it's going to create the ticket. It then will update it based on my response at the end where it said, did this work? And I said yes. So then it closed out the ticket. Great. Now, you could not do that, but you'd lose a lot of credit for automation. You wouldn't have any record of what people are asking for. You would lose a lot of metrics, all that kind of stuff. But the credit is probably more important to you. If I had said no, that this didn't work, it could say, okay, that's fine. What didn't work? What problem did you run into? And I can give a problem in language. It can then update the ticket with that information, recategorize the ticket to something that a human would interact with, and you've now elevated the ticket to a person. So think of all the tier 1 level tickets that you have out there that are a big time waster, time user on your your IT help desk. If you could take the top 10, 15, 20, automate those, roll out a bot, and say, hey, people in the world, go ahead and ask questions and request help through this bot, and you can see, based on your metrics that you already have, your top 10 or top 15 are covered. That's a big percentage of all the stuff coming in. And then over time, you can add a couple more skills every week, every month, whatever, and you can make the bot do that much more. So I think that's a really powerful example to show you some of the art of the possible for an information technology bot. And let's get up to the next one here. So I'm going to do one last demo here. And let's see if I can get my screen connected here. Alrighty. So now imagine with expense reporting. This is sort of an important one that everybody can also relate to. Let me get rid of this. And let me increase my phone a little bit in size. Okay, so I'm going to go into Microsoft Teams. I'm going to talk to a bot here. Ignore the name. It should be called like GoBot or ExpenseBot, something like that. But it is not called that. It's called Student Buddy for a demo I did recently. But let's say in this case, you can see what my bot can do. So it says I can get assignments, I can get announcements, and inexplicably, it can also take a submitted expense report and it can connect to a printer. Sounds familiar. The student ones are not going to be something I'm going to talk about right now, but I will do submitting an expense. How many of you have to submit expense reports every so often? Keep your hands up. How many of you like doing that? How many of you are using Concur? How many of you are using, keep your hands up, or SAP? I know SAP is the parent company now, but how many of you like that experience? Yeah, right, okay. So let's say I want to tell my bot that my lunch yesterday cost, I apologize, I did not set this up for Euro, so we're just going to call it $40. So I'm going to tell my bot that I spent $40 on lunch yesterday. It asked me what did I purchase. Apparently I didn't say lunch enough in my LUIS intent, which is a really good, this is all planned by the way. This is a really good example here of asking for details later on. So I didn't provide the word lunch enough, okay? Or any sort of synonym to that. Maybe you want to say luncheon if you're very formal, however you want to do that. So the next step here is the bot's going to ask, or going to say, great, I've filed your expense as, and it's lunch, and you're asking for reimbursement for 40 bucks. Do me one last thing. Can you please take a photo of, let's see, take photo. That was out last night outside of the Heineken place. Here is my actual receipt. So I will take photo, send, and I've now uploaded my receipt. So this is a situation where you got coffee at Starbucks. By the way, the first thing I see in the Amsterdam airport when I get past customs, Starbucks. It's amazing. We are just a virus. So you can imagine ordering, they write your name wrong on the cup, and you come over, they call your name, you don't hear it. So in that time period that you have, you can be submitting your expense like right then, right? So I'm gonna get a response back. It takes a second to upload. It's actually sending this into SharePoint. This is all real, it's happening live right now. You could be sending it to something like Concur. You could be sending it to some other system that you use. If you happen to be using spreadsheets and file shares, many organizations do, you can do that. So you'll say, got it, thanks. All right, I finished uploading your receipt. It's available here. I'm actually tempting fate here as to whether or not this will open up and I'm logged in. I'm not logged in, never mind. But it is in SharePoint and I can show it to you here. If I jump into my H3 account. So it uploads it into SharePoint, and let me just close that because that's done. And if I go to, I don't recognize the logos anymore. I can bring in my, I think it's in something called demos. Maybe it's not, actually. I just missed that. Oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? I'll just, since we have a couple minutes, I'll show you the flow itself. So if I sign into Microsoft Flow, again, so this is us using Flow in the background. I didn't custom code this, but you can actually see how Flow works. And I'm being sneaky here because I don't remember the URL, but the URL is in my Flow. So I can grab GoBot, submit an expense, and I will zoom in so it actually is visible to you. I will click Edit. These are my steps. So this was just when an intent was used. My intent was I want to submit an expense. It's grabbing my user information so it can use my name. I did a variable at the very beginning here to keep track of expense cost. This is my confirmation where it said, thanks, Matt. I filed your expense as whatever the item was, and you're requesting reimbursement for value. Get the response of uploading the photo, and then the photo gets uploaded to SharePoint, /sites/demos. Perfect. And if I go into my expense submissions, and I zoom in a little bit so you can see it, you'll see I have a new photo here, right? It's called Lunch. It was created by me on today's date, and it costs 40 bucks. So it is all real. I uploaded the photo, and then I updated the metadata associated with it. So this is where the expense item goes in the title, the date goes into the date, and the cost goes into the cost. And then after that, it says, you got it, thanks. Confirming the whole thing is done. Again, I would have grabbed the URL here if I needed it. because I did, and then I have a farewell. So that whole process was no code for us. This is where you would throw a third-party connection into, any API that you want to, Concur, something like that, or if you have local information. So hopefully you see some value in that. That was your one live demo for the day. The demo gods were not too unkind to me. And then we kind of want to talk use cases here. So I talked about tech support. That's pretty obvious. Customer service is going to be a very big one. Tech support for public-facing organizations is also going to be a big one. Think about your human resources organization. Onboarding and offboarding, going to be a big one. If you can automate that and, Andy from HR can just say onboard John Smith or offboard for various reasons, get rid of this person, that would be really helpful. Marketing, we actually use a bot to automate all of our social media presence. We schedule out our tweets and our LinkedIn posts ahead of time using our bot. We'll just say, hey, go batch those tweets. Again, the hard part isn't building the bot. The hard part is the content, right? Social media marketing is not as easy as some people may think it is. Another thing, if you have a business process improvement or a Lean Six Sigma organization, they are going to love this because it actually makes you sit down and look through your business process and make it work. Because if you can't write it down, it doesn't actually, maybe it exists, but it doesn't exist well, right? Knowledge management is going to be a big one for this. Finance and accounting with the example for submitting expenses there. And then I'm always looking for just the menu on a restaurant's website. If they just had a bot and I could just say, where's your menu, that'd be great. I always have to go I have some pretty good Google skills, I think, and I still have a problem finding things when I want them from just, local companies. So let's talk about a real world one. I am a customer for Bank of America. Sorry about 2008. And this is a real bot that they have. They are not paying me to say this. I'm just giving you an example because it's real and it works. They came out with Erica a few months ago. Get it? Bank of Erica. That's where the name comes from. Actually, I do go to the brick and mortar bank every so often. I don't just use the app all the time. And they had these stanchions up that would start talking to you while you were in line. It was infuriating. It was so weird. But the app itself does work pretty well. So when you open up Bank of America on your phone, you do get, and I'm not going to demo that for you, you do get a little button on the bottom right that says, hey, I'm Erica. You can pop it open. I moved recently, and I was able to use that to update all my addresses, to get some questions on whether or not credit card things had to change. I didn't have to talk to a person. It was great. So it's real world. After that, I had to get renter's insurance. I went through Geico. If you've ever heard of them, they're one of the bigger insurance companies in the US, the Geico Gecko. Even a caveman can do it. That's the company, if you've ever heard those commercials. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. Theirs is called Kate, and I went through the process. I actually got annoyed that I got pushed to that because I just wanted to go look up information. And Kate pops up and says, oh, hey, can I help you with that? It looks like you're on the renter's insurance page. Can I help you get renter's insurance? And it was like, no, well, why, yes, you can, actually. Now that I think of it, that's what I want to do. So there's a bit of a joke here that I got my insurance in less than 15 minutes. Now, if you're not familiar with the commercials, it's always get a quote in 15 minutes or less, and it worked. Not just a quote, I was done and paid for. And it was also, my girlfriend had to be on the lease and on the renter's insurance, so that was a bit of a potential hiccup, and I was looking at this from how can I break it, how can I break it, how can I break it? And I did not break it. They did a very nice job with that, and it was definitely real world, and it actually did work. I was very impressed. So if you want to check those out, you can. You can also, there's some articles out there about it on some technical sites that kind of look at it from a design standpoint. And the last one I think really is going to be forms. How many of you have just an absolute slew of forms that is not really well organized? Some of it's in InfoPath, some of it's in SharePoint, some of it's elsewhere. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah. Okay, so think of a lot of the things, the demos that I showed today, those are effectively forms, but in a conversational manner. Right? So if I go to somebody and say I want to do something and they ask me a couple questions, that was a verbal form, right? That's all it is. So if you're looking right now towards your strategic plan for forms, you should really consider chatbots plus Power Apps and Microsoft Flow. So Flow is the automator. Power Apps is basically the successor to InfoPath. There will never be a replacement for InfoPath, for the record. The word replacement is not sanctioned by Microsoft. It is the successor because it can't do everything the other one did yet, so we can't say it's a replacement. But if you have your bot start out and do the simple stuff, maybe 4, 5, 6 questions, bots can also have these things called adaptive cards, so you can actually have a mini form right in the bot, making a much more beautiful experience. And then when you have a really complex form, you can have it in Power Apps. Well, how am I going to know where to go? Do I go to the bot or do I go to Power Apps? Just go to the bot. If you have a question of I want to, or even a command, a statement, I want to schedule a public-facing meeting, something like that, and I have to request a room and do a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, that's actually more complex. Click this link to get to the form. So there's one single entry point, not two, one single entry point into all of these forms, and they're all going to be through your bot. So if it's simple, like requesting time off, it can go through the bot directly. If it's more complex, like requesting benefits every year, in the US, that's a complex process every January, and saying I want this life insurance versus that disability insurance versus this healthcare versus that can be something that you can fill out in Power Apps. So if you are currently living the life of an InfoPath and SharePoint designer person, that's great, you do have some time, but as you look forward towards your strategic plan for your organization, you're going to start veering away from those. Otherwise, you are going to regret it come 2026. That is when SharePoint Designer and InfoPath are subject to die. I say die, they still exist, they're just not going to be supported. Also, they both have not been updated since 2013. That's 6 years ago. It's a long time in the tech world, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, so I do have a couple minutes. Let's talk a little bit about knowledge management and what kind of efforts this, or what kind of things this can influence. So we are all very familiar with Site and Shared Drive, if you happen to still use those, which is perfectly fine, I'm not judging. Setups and search. So shared drives came about, folders, in the 90s probably, maybe the late 80s. And search came around, at least in SharePoint. I guess it would be in the early 2000s. So bots are now sort of a third paradigm of information management and knowledge management in an organization. And you kind of have to look at it from these perspectives here, these 5 items. Green means good, yellow means okay, red means bad. So when you're talking about the information, if you have sites and libraries and you do them well, okay, this does not assume that a mess is organized. It's generally organized, okay? With search, it doesn't have to be organized. I just give a term, my query goes out, and SharePoint or what other search, Microsoft Search, Bing Search, Google, whatever, comes back with an answer. With bot, it's direct to the thing that you wanted, right? I don't have to look through a bunch of responses like I would in search. I don't have to look through a bunch of folders like I would in a site or a library structure. Now, when you go down one more level, sites and libraries technically probably have lots of stuff, or almost everything, but I'll just call it lots of stuff in this case. So you do have a lot of finding you'd have to do. With search, there's everything. And what's the worst part about search? Rot. If somebody has old, outdated, redundant information, so let's say they want to look up information about the benefits package and the top hit is still the one from 2015 because it got so many clicks and nobody deleted it, that makes search bad, right? So you can have search optimized all you want, but the search owner can't be going out and grabbing everybody and saying, you uploaded this file 5 years ago and it's killing my search results. Because probably that search owner has access to everything, and their search results look nothing like an actual user. And actual users don't generally report problems unless it's very, very easy to do so, and it's not in SharePoint out of the box. So being able to, or being stuck with having to look through everything is not necessarily good. With bots, you're effectively curating, okay? You're kind of like building a museum display. Yeah, we have all this crap in the back, but this is the stuff you really want to see, okay? Next level down, it's the sites and libraries are predictable, right? They're a map. As long as you know the roadmap to the 9th level deep folder that gets you the thing that you need, you're good to go. On day 1, not good to go. You don't know how to get around that. But it is predictable and it doesn't change unless somebody changes it. For search, completely unpredictable. My search results tomorrow are going to be different from my search results today, right? With bots, again, completely predictable because you've made them that way. You've curated them. Now, with a site or a folder structure, if you want it to be good, you are curating. That is your job, right? That is a full-time job for many people. For search, no curation. Great. Grab me that thing, grab me that thing. It doesn't matter where it is. It'll just pop up based on the algorithm. With bots, you do have to curate some stuff, but only curate the high-value things. With the last part here, user training, maximum user training to understand a map. Okay, there is no Google Maps to get you to the item that's 5 level or 5 folder levels deep in shared drive F versus shared drive H, right? So you do have to be aware of how to use that. It's usually a very local skill, so it's not applicable to other organizations in the other units or departments in the organization. So if I'm in HR and I finally understand the entire file structure there, and I go to IT, I do not know the file structure there. Okay, so you don't really get to take that with you. In search, you may say no training is required, but you would be surprised how many people on the user level still don't know that quotes get you an exact phrase match. That's very simple to a lot of us. I actually put together an infographic on how to search in SharePoint using file types, people's names, quotes, dates, things like that. So you can actually get it right in your query and good to go. It's because of that, the need for that even, that it does require some mid-level user training. When it comes to bots, there is none. Just talk. Just talk to the bot and see what it does. If it can do it, great. If it can't, you can provide some feedback. So I think that's pretty important for you to keep in mind. So that brings me to the end. Here are some resources. Again, these will all be online. I'll be posting on Twitter and LinkedIn. If you want some more information, this is an offshoot of the periodic table of Office 365. This is the table of Azure Cognitive Services. Just go to ai.jumpto365.com. I did this in, most of the content was provided by Stefan Bisser. He's out of Austria. He's in Vienna, and he is an AI MVP. And I think this is a really good way to look at a lot of the services that are available out there. So check that out later on. I'm also going to be doing a live build an FAQ bot later this afternoon if you want to stop by. I will do it in Azure. You will see it. I will be connecting a real QnA Maker to it, so you'll see that too. And then tonight I'm going to be, I don't know how to say this. Is it Barneveld? Okay. It is the Dynamics. It's the Customer Engagement Professionals of the Netherlands Dynamics 365 user group. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about bots applicability within Dynamics 365, not just building your own. There are a couple cool tools coming out built into Dynamics next month in public preview. So if you're interested in that, join us there. And I will open it up for any questions. Come on, I'm your personal bot right now. Yes, in the back. Yeah, sure. I can do that. Any other questions? Yes, over here in the back there.
How easy is it to import data from Excel files, dump it into the bot?
How easy is it to import Excel, like macros, workflows?
Well, for example, or anyways, text files or anything. Say I have a lot of knowledge items.
Sure.
Organized.
Sure. So the question is, she has some knowledge bases already built in Excel. Actually, lucky for you, QnA Maker is built off of tables, which you can get from Excel. They're tab separated value files. They don't use commas because you might put a comma in a response. And you can actually just upload that directly into there. Organization will still be on you, of course, because you can't get good organization by magic, but that's definitely doable. And there was one more question up here. Yeah. The available channels is in which apps can you go to it through? Yeah, okay, so what available channels are there? Actually, I'll talk about that during my session later. I'll show it to you. But I will tell you that Teams Direct Line is the one that you can use for any sort of web app. You have Skype for business. I think regular Skype as well. Facebook Messenger, Twitter, SMS. Cortana is there, but it's not supported yet. It's coming. So I don't know if Alexa is covered either, but that's a good question. All right, so I'm going to end that there because I'm out of time. Thank you all very much, and I hope to see you a little bit later.